Another loss for the Blue Jackets is not the end of the world, but it is getting close to worst case scenario. We unpack what went wrong in the game against the Islanders and what they have to do tonight against the Rangers to get back in the conversation. That's what's coming up on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favourite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also want to let you know that we are brought to you today by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I also just want to thank everyone for making us the number one sports podcast network as well. Let's talk about the Islanders game. We have to talk about that because it wasn't the absolute worst case scenario, but it was pretty bad. In addition, the standings around the league keep going against the Blue Jackets' favour, and they also play again tonight. They got to play the Rangers, which that's a trap game if ever I've seen one. So lots to talk about. Let's get into it. Blue Jackets lose on Saturday to the Islanders in overtime. They were 2-0 up. This was such a weird game because I feel like I should be madder than I am about the actual game because it was a classic Blue Jacketing, right? Of being up and then letting the lead slip away and having to claw your way back into it. They claw their way back into it and then immediately lose in overtime, which took 1 minute and 47 seconds. The Islanders, insanely, are now 8-0 in overtime. They're less good in the shootout. They're only 4-5 in the shootout, but 8-0 in the 5-minute overtime period. So, of course, the Blue Jackets should not have lost this game, and partially it's a little bit their own fault, I think. Mostly, I think it is the fault of the fact that they got some absolutely garbage puck luck, right? Like, that first one that went in just kind of bounced in. The second goal was goalie interference. The third goal was another one that bounced in. The fourth one was okay. I would have liked Jet to have that fourth one, but I also don't love the way that the players on the ice played it. Like, I don't know where Rafa Provorov was. Don't know where he was. Got past Adam Fantilli, who is not a defenseman, and there's been a lot of people kind of, crapping on Fantilli for losing Holmstrom, but once again, not a defenseman. And yes, your forwards should be at least, and your centres as well, should be reasonably competent in their own zone. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not on Fantilli for losing his man, but it does feel a little bit like he shouldn't have been in that position to begin with, right? So just a real kind of everyone is at fault here. To lose this game, I know Fantilli was mad as hell after the game based on the way that he tried to send his stick to the Shadow Realm. But like overall, a really really frustrating game of hockey because again, Blue Jackets in complete control. They outshot the by the end of the second period. The Blue Jackets were outshooting the Islanders 27-15, and I believe they were losing 3-2 at the end of the second. Or, well, no, it was tied. Zach Werenski, Adam Fantilli scored with like 1.5 minutes left in the second period to tie the game, which is great because, again, like the Blue Jackets, I don't think have won a game when they've got into the third period down by a goal or more. When they are tied, at least that gets a little bit better. So, again, kind of a flat third period from the Blue Jackets, outshot 10-3 in that third period. Now, I believe some of that was, no, it wasn't. I was going to say some of it was power play time for the Islanders. It wasn't. the Blue Jackets just came out flat in the third period. It was a real Dean Everson-looking third period, if I'm going to be brutally honest with you, right? Which was kind of my biggest problem with the game was the third period, right? It wasn't the goals against, it wasn't the overtime period. That was all frustrating. It was that piss poor third period, if you'll excuse the language, and hopefully I don't get in trouble with corporate on that one. But it's just, this was a game that they needed to win. The Bruins game was a game that they needed to win, right? Like all of these wins that they pulled off during that win streak, like the insane Tampa game, they had 3 shutouts in 7 games. They pulled themselves back into the conversation. In going into the Olympic break, they were 4 points out of a playoff spot, right? Now since then, the Islanders have won 5 games in a row. I think 4 of those are coming out of the break. I think they've played at least 3 games coming out of the break. It might be 4, but they've won all of them. And thus, again, including the Blue Jackets lost to them, and the Blue Jackets lost to the Bruins, the Blue Jackets are 0-1-1 coming out of the break. They've got 66 points. The Islanders have 75, so they've increased that lead to 9 points on the Blue Jackets. Again, Pittsburgh, they keep winning as well. They beat the Vegas Golden Knights most recently. They lost to the Rangers. They lost to the Rangers in overtime. But they're winning games as well. And it's looking like that gap that the Blue Jackets worked really, really hard to close has just sprung wide open again. And again, you look at the teams that they've lost to so far this season, right? Like teams that are above them in the standings, games that is like they lost 2 games to the Penguins. They've lost 2 games to the Islanders, one of those in regulation. They lost to the Bruins in regulation. They've lost at least 1 game to the Red Wings, possibly 2. They've lost 2 games to the Capitals, at least, who are above them in the standings as well. The Blue Jackets have got the Capitals coming up soon, I'm sure, which will be fun for everyone involved, except for me. But, these are all games that they needed to win, and they didn't, right? On the flip side, this is a, how do I want to put this? If the Blue Jackets had played literally any other teams in these last 2 games and lost them, I think the reaction would have been way less dramatic, right? Like, it's just, if the Blue Jackets had lost to, I don't know, man, like, the Flyers and the Leafs as those 2 games, I think the reaction would be really different. And I get why the reaction is different. It's because these are the teams that they're chasing in the playoffs, but, it's just, it is what it is, right? Like, they needed to win these games, and they didn't. And now, the conversation of, well, what do they do at the trade deadline, becomes a tad bit more complicated. So we're going to take a very quick break, and then when we get back, I want to talk about the trade deadline coming up, what that means, and whether selling might be the move after all. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you all about FanDuel, because I don't know about you, but college basketball is about to be my entire personality. It is non-stop in March. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night, from early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts. There is always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read. You can make spreads, totals, player props to see how you match the slate playing out, and you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, and now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Thank you for making us the number 1 listen every single day, or your first listen every single day, I should say. Join the Everyday Club for ad-free audio, access to our group chat on Discord, and even more. Use code DEADLINE ahead of the trade deadline for 1 month free. Join now at lockedonbluejackets.supercast.com or hit the link in the show notes. Let's talk about the trade deadline, because, a week ago, everyone was saying, no, the Blue Jackets should keep all their UFAs, or, many people were saying this, and, the word on the street is that they were keeping all their UFAs, and they were going to try and re-sign all four of them, which I don't think is a good idea. Like, really, you can only, if you have Coyle, Marchment, Jenner, Gabranson, you can keep two of those guys. You should keep two of those guys, right? And it should be a reasonable contract. It should be, no more than 3 years. Charlie Coyle's about to be 34. Mason Marchment's about to be 31. Jenner's got to go. I've been thinking about this on and off, and, like, I love Boone Jenner. He, in a perfect world, would be a forever Blue Jacket, right? But I keep going back to, the worst thing you can be as a GM is sentimental. And unfortunately, I think keeping Boone Jenner is sentimental. I don't think he adds anything to the team that you can't get anywhere else. And I feel the same way about Gabranson as well. Like, he's not an everyday NHL defenseman. He's not. I thought he looked awful during the Islanders game. He looks like he's a step behind every other player. While he was on the ice, the Blue Jackets were outshot 9-5, and they were out attempted 25-14 at 5-on-5. The only player who was worse was Ivan Provorov, who had a brutal game. Just a really, and he's been better recently, but just an awful game from Provorov. Outshot 8-2, out attempted 14-6. Like, just not a good game from him. But he's locked in for the next 6 years or whatever it is. So it is what it is. Branson, you can't. I don't think if you want to improve the defense, you want to add literally anything to this team, you can't keep Branson. He's just taking up a roster spot for a younger, more reasonable player that fits the timeline of this team. I don't know that there's a market for Eric Branson. Like, I don't know that he is necessarily someone that you trade at the deadline, right? I don't know that he's a guy that teams are gonna, be lining up to try and acquire like they are with Jenner specifically, or with Coyle, or with like they will be with Coyle, I'm sure. But if you can get a mid-range pick for him, if you can get, when I say mid-range, I mean like a fourth, then maybe you do that. If he wants to come back in the summer, then whatever. Like, he can come back in the summer and try and figure it out. But I don't think there's a place on this team for Eric Branson. And I say that knowing that he has been a great veteran, a great teammate. I think he is a great vibes-based player. I think his importance is most noticeable off the ice, which is a problem for someone that you're playing every single day, and someone that you're playing not insignificant minutes to. He played almost 18 minutes in this game. Or he's playing an average of 18 minutes this season. In this game, he played 16 and a half minutes at 5-on-5. Like, yes, he kills penalties. You're telling me you can't find a single penalty-killing defenseman out there that is less of a liability in his own zone and actually manages to create something on the other end of the ice every so often? I'm not buying it. Anyway, the point that this was not intended to be a Eric Branson's got to go segment. If the Blue Jackets lose tonight, and we'll talk about tonight's game in a second here, but if tonight's game goes badly, the Blue Jackets are going to continue to be further and further away from a playoff berth, and I think the Metropolitan Division is probably out of reach. Now, again, with the Islanders winning last night and the Penguins winning last night, they're both 9 points up on the Blue Jackets. Now, there are games in hand here. The Penguins have 1 game in hand. The Islanders have 3 games in hand. So it seems like the way to go might be the sneaking into a wildcard spot, right? They are, I believe, 5 points behind. They're 5 points behind Boston for that second wildcard spot and have a game in hand on them as well. So while there's still a lot of work to be done, it's not game over yet. However, if the Blue Jackets lose tonight and the Bruins win tomorrow, where they're playing Pittsburgh, which is probably going to be an overtime game because of course it is. And the Blue Jackets have Nashville tomorrow as well, so there's an opportunity for the Blue Jackets to pick up 4 points here. And if the Bruins lose, then the Blue Jackets will be 1 point out of that playoff spot, that wild card spot, regardless, depending on what Washington does, or what Ottawa does. There's a couple of moving parts here, but the point I'm making here is the Blue Jackets could be 1 point behind the Bruins if they win tonight and tomorrow. If they lose tonight and tomorrow and the Bruins win, the Blue Jackets will be on 66 points and the Bruins will be on 73 points, which will put the Blue Jackets 7 points out of a wild card spot. And then you've got to mix in the fact that the Washington Capitals are still there. They play Utah tomorrow. The Senators are hanging around. They are on the same number of points as the Blue Jackets. They play Edmonton tomorrow. Who was the other team that I was looking at? The Flyers are sitting in at 65 points, 1 point behind the Blue Jackets. They play tonight. They play... Who was I just looked? They're playing the Leafs tonight, so... Again, lots of moving parts, right? The teams that I'm really worried about at the minute are Boston and Washington. I think we can't pay attention to the Islanders and the Penguins at the minute. They're too far out of reach. Worry about the Bruins, worry about the Capitals, and go from there, right? I mean, obviously, you should be worrying about yourself and, making it, making it your own, make your own destiny. But unfortunately, I think we've run out of opportunities for the Blue Jackets to make it their own destiny based on how many games they blew earlier this season, right? Like, again, you go back to the games that they blew and you think, well, if they'd won half of those blown leads, then, they'd comfortably be in a playoff spot. If they hadn't blown every single game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, then they'd be comfortably in a playoff spot. Not comfortably in a playoff spot, but they would have gained 2 extra points, and the Penguins would have gained 6 fewer points. So they'd be on 69 points, and the Blue Jackets would be on 68 points. So it would be a lot closer. However, it's not out of reach yet. But if it is, which is the point of the segment that it took me way longer to get to than I meant it to, you have to maybe flip your opinion. If the Blue Jackets are more than 5 points out of a playoff spot by the end of tomorrow night, I think it is inexcusable to not at least explore the concept of selling one of Coyle or Marchment. Probably Coyle, because Don Waddell really wants to keep Marchment. And you have to explore options on Jenner. You have to explore options on Gabranson. Like, if you stand pat at the deadline for a second time and just hope that the team can pull themselves into the playoffs, looking at what happened last year, like, that to me is kind of inexcusable. And maybe I should have more faith in the players, right? And maybe I'm being melodramatic here. Maybe I'm being overly doomerish on this, but it's gonna really suck and especially because none of these guys have contracts yet, and they're happy to go into the trade deadline without giving them contract, which feels kind of insane. Because for me it should be if these guys aren't signed by March 6th is the deadline, you have to at least explore trading them, because if you don't make the playoffs and then you lose all of these guys in the summer for free, then what are we even doing here? Especially if, as I suspect the case might be, the Blue Jackets continue to fall off. I think that they look much better under Bowness than they did under Everson, but I do wonder if we're gonna see more of this kind of game as the standings get tighter and as the games get bigger stakes. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm being overly negative here. I hope I am. I would love to be proven wrong. Please prove me wrong. If I say something bad and I'm then proven wrong, I love it, right? I hate to be proven wrong if I say something good and then it turns out that the bad actually happened, right? So maybe I will just continue to be pessimistic, and then I either get to be right or I get to enjoy the beauty of being wrong and having a positive thing happen. I don't know. But the point I'm making here is, depending on the results of tonight's game and tomorrow night's game, I don't think that you can not at least explore being a seller at the deadline, because I think you look at what you can get with Charlie Coyle, from selling Charlie Coyle. What you can get from potentially Boone Jenner. I know Edmonton is really high on Boone Jenner. I feel like Toronto's probably out of the playoff mix right now, but they would have been a perfect team for someone like Jenner, right? Like, you look at I almost said out of instinct that the Penguins need a center, and felt like this entire shiver just run through my whole body. I hate that. We won't be manifesting that. Carolina Hurricanes are after a center. Like, is there something to be done? Something to be done there, right? Like, all of these teams could potentially be a landing spot for Jenner. I think you have to at least acknowledge that selling might be the thing to do. Unfortunately, I think Don Waddell is going to double down again and then figure it out in the offseason, or hopefully figure it out in the offseason. But I'm not the most confident I've ever been in Don Waddell right now. I would feel much better if A, they were exploring trading these guys, or B, at least one of them had some kind of contract extension in place. And when I say one of them, I would keep Charlie Coyle over all of them. I'd probably keep Marchment as well, but if I could only keep one of them, it would absolutely be Coyle. However, I do think he's going to bring you the biggest haul on the deadline. So it sucks to be talking about this. Like, literally a week ago, we were talking about how great it's going to be when the Blue Jackets make the playoffs, and how keeping guys is the right move, and etc., etc., etc. But I guess things change fast. Again, these were two big games that should have been wins and weren't, and needed to be wins, and the Blue Jackets, they kind of fell flat. Now, again, I don't feel, these specific games I don't feel particularly, like, doomerish about, based on the fact that they got goalied by Jonas Korpisalo against the Bruins, and the Islanders scored, like, 2 lucky goals, and one probably should have been a legal goal, and then an overtime goal, which, as we all, like, overtime is fake. Not as fake as empty net goals, but, so we move on. Should have won, didn't. No more victories, but frustrating. Let's take another quick break, and let's talk about the New York Rangers, who the Blue Jackets haven't played in a minute, but this is a trap, right? This game is a trap. We'll talk about it in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I want to tell you about Game Time, because there's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, that hasn't been so simple, though. But that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast, without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. I pulled up the Game Time app, and I had a quick look at what was going on with Cavaliers games, and literally it took me 3 minutes to have tickets in my basket. I can't go because that's a bit of a commute, but I am consistently shocked at how easy it is to just go to Game Time and find a ticket, or 2 tickets, or however many tickets you need, and I'm like, okay, this is a great section. Hit the button, boom, done. You can see the view from before your seat, before you buy. You can see the all-in price up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout, and they've got great last-minute options as well, with tickets showing up at solid prices. It's intuitive, it's quick, it's stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today, and remember, gametime.co, not .com. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk, unfortunately, about the New York Rangers, who are having kind of a miserable season, which I'm not going to laugh too hard about that, because the hockey gods will smite me for my hubris, but I do enjoy when the Rangers are miserable. They are 23, 29, and 7 on the season. They are 2-7-1 in their last 10 games. They have no regulation wins in that time. They had a shootout win against the Penguins, which was useful, but I would have loved for that to be a regulation win, Rangers. And they've got a win against Boston as well, but 2 losses against the Islanders in that time, because, again, the Rangers can do nothing for me. They are a team that is in freefall, and it is probably going to get worse before it gets better for the Rangers, I think. Like, they've still got, obviously they don't have Artemi Panarin on the team anymore, who was their big ticket guy. He was their leading point scorer, and with him gone, that falls to Mika Zibanejad, who's got 53 points in 58 games. But, they're probably going to lose Vincent Trocheck. They're probably going to lose potentially a couple other guys, before the deadline goes. Vincent Trocheck, I believe, is second on the team in scoring right now, 38 points in 45 games. So they probably won't lose them before tonight's game, although that would be useful if they did. But the Rangers right now are really, really hanging on to the fact that Igor Shesterkin is playing out of his mind good. Like, he's not been the best goalie in the league, although there was a significant chunk of the season where he was the best goalie in the league. And I assume that's who we're going to see tonight. It's going to be Elvis versus Shesterkin, I believe. Elvis was in the starter's net in practice yesterday. But in terms of goals saved above expected, Igor Shesterkin is 5th in the league. And he's doing all of that with the Rangers, who again have been just miserable right now. And also most of the season, he's got a .913 save percentage. In his last handful of games, let me just pull that up. In his last 5 games, he's got a .939 against Pittsburgh, an .875 against Philadelphia. Came on in relief against Utah and made 9 of 9 saves. I assume played a period. Had a .973 against Florida in a win, and a .914 against Carolina. So again, he is an extremely, extremely good goalie, playing behind a very, very bad team. So presumably that will come back to bite the Blue Jackets, because if they can't solve Shesterkin, if you can't solve Shesterkin, then it's I think it's game over before game even begins, right? The Blue Jackets are a better team than the Rangers. They're going to have to win the goaltending battle. The Rangers are terrible at scoring goals. They're terrible at not allowing goals. Their power play is good. Their penalty kill is middle of the road. They're a really good face-off team, which is, I assume, based entirely on Vincent Trocheck and JT Miller. But this should be a win for the Blue Jackets. Again, I don't remember who was in goal for. I believe it was Greaves was in net for the first time. The first time these teams played. I'm just going to pull up the numbers. Yeah, Jet was in net, made 32 of 33 saves, and lost in the shootout because, of course, I think that was the first shootout of his entire career, which kind of feels wild. But the Blue Jackets are going to be putting Elvis in tonight, who wasn't great against Boston, but he wasn't terrible. Again, I hesitate to put 2 of the goals on him. That third goal, the Sean Corrali goal that ended up being the game winner, that's the one you want back. But the first goal, weird bounce, own goal, I think, actually, from Isaac Lundestrom. And then the second goal was just a really nice power play goal. So we'll see if he bounces back. He has been a lot better since the Bowness thing, and hopefully the rust has kind of been shaken off, and or the fatigue from that transatlantic travel, which again will mess you up. The Blue Jackets need to be the better team in this game. I don't think they're going to be able to be the worst team and win, but they've been the better team against the Islanders and against the Bruins, and they lost both those games. So maybe they need a game where they get outplayed badly and somehow win anyway. I don't know. Guys to watch. Obviously, Vincent Trocheck is one of the guys to watch. He's got 5 points in his last 5 games. Alexis Lafreniere has 3 goals in his last 5 games. He might be a guy that's on the way out for the Rangers as well, actually, which I'm sure will be... Most Rangers fans will be delighted by, but I feel like he's a prime candidate to go somewhere and just pop off. Like, I probably would take I don't know what his contract is off the top of my head. I think it's pretty long and kind of expensive, but like he's maybe a guy that I would take a flyer on for the Blue Jackets if you can get him for cheap as like a reclamation project, and you really, really think that he's going to pop off out of the Rangers development program. He might be fun to to maybe again take a flyer on, but I don't see that happening. But Blue Jackets should win this game. Will they win this game? That's another question. This feels like a low-scoring game, which naturally means it's gonna be one of those like 5-6 finals. But I think it's probably going to be another 2-1 game. I think Shesterkin will shut down the Blue Jackets, and I think the Rangers have had trouble scoring all season. So I'm going to go ahead and pencil in a 2-1 victory for the Blue Jackets, probably in overtime because they hate me. And let's see, a goal scorer. I'm going to go ahead and guess a guy who is, if he heats up, is great news for the Blue Jackets, and that's Adam Fantilli. He's got 15 goals on the season after scoring in back-to-back games. Had one against the Bruins, had one against the Islanders, and I think he's going to score again tonight. So let's say a 2-1 Blue Jackets win with a Adam Fantilli goal. That's my prediction. Get your predictions down below in the YouTube comments, or there's going to be a tweet going up at LO_Blue Jackets asking over there as well. And we've got a standings update coming pretty soon, because I think this is game 59 for the Blue Jackets. So after game 60, we will have a little standings update for you. Thank you for listening to this episode, making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. You can find me at Blue Sky, at JKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. And sign up for the Everydayers Club if you want ad-free episodes of this very show. I know a lot of people have ad fatigue in this day and age, and you can get 1 month free. Just go to lockedonbluejackets.supercast.com and use code DEADLINE. As we run into the trade deadline, you can get the entire month of March for free. Just sign up once again with code DEADLINE. Thank you once again for listening, and until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.